You know, in Australian academia, there's this gap in representation that's been around for a long, long time. But what if the answer isn't about just casting a wider net? What if it's about using a magnet instead? Today, we're going to dig into a really focused recruitment strategy that's changing the game for how universities find and hire Indigenous academics.
And this really gets to the heart of the whole thing, right? How in the world do you find absolutely brilliant people who aren't even looking for a new job? This is the big challenge that the old ways of recruiting just couldn't solve, and it's totally key to understanding the new approach we're about to unpack.
So before we can really appreciate the solution, we've got to get our heads around the problem. For years, Australian universities have been staring at this critical representation gap. It's a systemic issue, and it's exactly why a totally new way of thinking was so desperately needed.
And wow, this chart just lays it all out, doesn't it? That big bar on the left, that's the percentage of First Nations people in the Australian population. And that much, much smaller bar right next to it, yeah, that's their share of academic jobs. This isn't just a number on a chart, it's a massive call to action.
Okay, so you see a gap like that, what do you do? Well, let's take a look at Murdoch University. They decided to tackle this head-on and make closing this gap a central part of their mission.
And Murdoch University was super clear about their goal. This wasn't just some vague wish, it was an active, strategic commitment. They are all in on increasing the representation of First Nations people on their staff because they see it as fundamental to who they are and their role in reconciliation.
But to actually make that commitment a reality, they knew the old post a job and pray method just wasn't going to cut it. And that led to this really important strategic shift, moving from passively waiting for people to apply to proactively going out and finding them with a specialist approach. And when you put these two strategies side by side, the difference is just night and day. The old way was like casting this huge, inefficient net, just hoping you might catch the right person by accident. The new way? It's like using a powerful magnet. It's all about targeted attraction, speaking directly to the exact people you want to reach.
So the magic word here is proactive. This whole idea of proactive recruitment is a total game changer. It's not about posting a job and just hoping for the best anymore. It means you're actively identifying, connecting with, and building relationships with amazing potential candidates, many of whom might not even know an opportunity is out there for them.
Okay, so proactive sounds great, right? But what does that actually look like? What are the real tools and strategies they use to connect with top-tier Indigenous academics? Let's get into it.
It was basically a three-pronged attack. First, they built one single dedicated digital hub, a one-stop shop for all Indigenous opportunities. Then they used super targeted advertising to drive the right people to that hub. But that last piece, that was the secret sauce, leveraging a specialized network to personally and respectfully reach out to top talent.
And this quote from their specialist partner, academicjobs.com.au, really says it all. That confidence comes from having a deep, established network. See, they aren't just finding people out of the blue. They're making connections within a community they already know incredibly well.
But, you know, this whole thing is about so much more than just filling job quotas. To really get why this matters, we have to ask the big question. Why is this work so important, not just for the university, but for everyone?
Because the impact is like a powerful ripple effect. When you have more Indigenous academics, you inspire Indigenous students. You bring in new, vital perspectives that enrich research and teaching for everybody. It builds stronger bridges with the community, creates a genuinely more inclusive culture on campus, and it's a real, tangible step toward meaningful reconciliation. It really transforms the whole institution from the inside out.
So, we've seen how a targeted, proactive strategy is making a real difference at Murdoch University. But the core ideas here, spotting a gap, really understanding your audience, and actively building connections, that's not just for academia. Which brings us to one last, really important question to think about. If this approach can work here, where else could we use it to close another critical representation gap?